Welcome. I'm Kinetic Symphony. I hunt down and report on mysterious and weird true stories, from glitches to the paranormal. Case file number 255, written by Mark. A picture drawn, faded from existence. I'm an artist. Back when I was living with my parents, one particular evening when they got home, my dad said that a guy he works with was starting a barbecue business and wanted me to create a picture for the business. I worked several days on it, and the end result was a picture of a pig holding a barbecue fork and wearing an apron. I felt good about it and looked forward to it being used and seen by the public. One night at supper, I asked my dad, "Hey, how are things going with the restaurant business?" He didn't know what I was talking about. I told him the whole situation, and he still didn't know about it. I went to my art table and looked for the picture, but it wasn't there. The whole situation never happened, but I know I created that picture. If you're enjoying this video, consider giving it a like. Now on to the next story. Bonus file, written by Pokemon Yo. Special artifact in a paranormal history. A family member bought this object at an antique store. She looked at it and walked about 20 feet away from it, then was drawn back to the object, looked at it closer. It was a great piece, and decided to buy it. After bringing it home today, it sat in the garage for a few hours. Later on, she went outside to clean it and wash it out, and brought it inside the home, into a room near the kitchen, then left the object there on the table. She took several photos of the object on the table, then immediately went into the kitchen to clean the dishes. While cleaning the dishes, she felt an intense force rushing up on her to grab her. She felt the actual pressure on her left side from the disembodied voice coming up on her, and heard something make a sound in her left ear. She said she can't remember the exact sound, but when she originally told me, it was almost like a negative, wasn't a high-pitched yell or anything, like a medium-range sound. It made her jump, letting out a shrieking sound. It was an intense, immediate feeling of panic when it happened, she said. The feeling went away only after telling any negative spirits and energies to leave, and that they were not welcome here, saying it out loud several times in the garage and inside the house, while placing a Bible on the object and holding a cross. At first, when it happened, she thought someone else was playing a trick on her in the house. The feeling of a male figure, she actually thought it was her husband coming up on her to mess with her, but there was no one around. The closest person was in the bathroom quite a distance away, and another person was on a separate floor of the house. After hearing the shrieking/yelling sound she made, the family member in the bathroom quickly came into the kitchen and asked what just happened. It all happened very quickly, around 5:40 p.m. local time. This is not the first time an object has been purchased, bought, brought home, and very strange things start happening. For example, an antique wood clock that was purchased in another state. It was a clock that would hang on the wall and had a very solid latch that would keep it closed. We would come down several times in the morning and the clock would be completely open, as if someone moved it over the latch and opened it up. Sometimes the TV would even be turned on to different screens in that same room. But no one messed with the clock and no one turned on the TV. You would even hear people yelling out your name as if someone was calling for you, but no one was actually calling for you. After getting rid of that clock, those issues basically completely stopped. Today's example was the most negative feeling of all the paranormal experiences in this house. But again, things felt much better after telling it to leave and that it's not welcome here, whatever it is. The other experiences did not feel negative, maybe playful or trickster-like, but nothing negative. However, the name calling out has somewhat persisted or continued on. It is still very infrequent, off and on. While writing the story, there were several electronic glitches where I wasn't able to write it out. Notepad would scroll up by itself and not let me copy the text I wrote. This long block of text kept deleting itself in real time while I was watching the screen, so I had to copy and paste it to a new note. And while trying to save the images, it froze my computer. Maybe it has nothing to do with it and is just a software issue, but who knows. The object has been donated to Goodwill now. Sent text to 4 different people after donated it. The images disappeared or showed up blank, not able to view it. Update. I've always believed in the paranormal, but many years ago I made it a goal of mine to actively seek out and experience it for myself, firsthand. One summer, my friends and I spent a lot of time traveling to various spots known to be very haunted across the St. Louis, Missouri region. One night we took the Ouija board to Main Street in St. Charles, Missouri, a city founded in 1969. It was the first state capital of Missouri, and it's situated on the Missouri River. Using it there for several hours, some strange things happened while using the Ouija board. Very old perfume smells, some movement and responses on the Ouija board with the planchette, and gusts of wind, but nothing really paranormal until we were getting ready to leave. Prior to leaving, we were talking and standing by our cars, and directly across the street from me I saw a tall woman in white, frantically running across the street in an 1800s dress. She was transparent, bright, white, and quickly vanished. If I blinked my eyes, I would have missed her. That's how fast she ran and vanished. I looked at my friend and said, "Did you just see?" And he basically said, "That lady in a white dress that ran across the street? Yeah." He validated what I saw without even having to say it. There's several stories of the lady in white in St. Charles that can be found online. According to the St. Louis Post-Dispatch, the lady in white reportedly haunts the 400 block of South Main Street in St. Charles, sulking behind the buildings where no one ventures after dusk. The 400 block of St. Main Street is the exact location where we saw her, literally on the dot. We all left Main Street, it was like 3 a.m., and drove over to the St. Charles Borromeo Catholic Cemetery. My friend parked his car. I rode with him, and as a group with our other friends, who separately drove their own cars, we all walked into the cemetery to try to experience more and hopefully catch some evidence. Eventually, a cop pulled up in his car, then walked up and asked us what we were doing. We told him we were ghost hunting. He was super cool about it and said, "I have something to show you, come with me," and took us over to Jean-Baptiste Point du Sable's grave and explained who he was, the founder of Chicago. Along with some of the stories and how the area is known to be super haunted, Louis Blanchette, the founder of the city St. Charles, is buried there too. We spent a few minutes more there. Then afterwards, we went back to the car my friend parked. His mileage was at 666. This experience led me and that same friend spending a lot of time in his house conducting EVPs, basically using multiple voice recorders to capture audio, taking pictures and recording video, using an MEL meter, EMF meters, PSB7 spirit box, and a REM pod. Along with consistently using the Ouija board and conducting seances asking for things to happen, to show themselves to us, etc. We were very dedicated and serious about it. There's too many things we experienced at this house to list. Here are some of the experiences. This is a list of 3 separate EVP sessions we had that took place in the same room of this house. First session. We were sitting in his room during an EVP session recording the audio, asking for the entity to make a noise, show itself to us, etc. All of a sudden, his tall lamp fell over in the corner. We were sitting away from it. No one touched it. My friend ran out of the room. I jumped over the bed and clipped my leg on it, even having to get a bandage for it. We went back and listened to the audio, and a voice appeared on the recording. Visually looking at the audio, we could see a blip. It was at a much lower frequency/volume than our voices. We could hear the response, but decided to increase the volume of the audio. The voice said, "Wait, wait." Just before the lamp fell over, it was telling us it was about to do something prior to doing it, sort of like a countdown. For example, "Wait, wait. Okay, now." Second session. As we listened back to this recording session, there was a voice that specifically said my friend's name, then my name. We quickly went downstairs and told his older brother. I exported the audio and emailed it to his brother. His brother opened it up and played the audio file out loud on his TV from a different room. The recording said my friend's name, then my name, like it originally did when we played it back. The brother played the audio over and over again, but this time it also included the brother's name in the recording. His brother's eyes immediately teared up. He was visibly shaken, and told us to get out of his room. I'm not sure how this is even possible. I mentioned the electronic glitches in the last post, but it was a scary moment that an audio file already exported from one device and shared to a different device could be altered in real time as we listened to it together. Third session. We received an intelligent response to a direct question we asked. We asked how old the entity was, and he specifically responded to us with his age, 18. Again, looking at the audio, there was a small blip where the entity responded, and it was on a much lower frequency/volume than our voices. Items/objects moving and disappearing was a somewhat common occurrence in his home, and even in my home. A couple examples here. In my friend's house, while we were watching something on TV, there was a coin that fell off his dresser in his room. It caught our attention, so we went looking for it. When we found it a few minutes later, it was in a closed dresser drawer. At my house, my friend was not with me. While I was sitting in a room near the kitchen, yes, the same kitchen from my last post, which is also the same home as a clock opening by itself and TV turning on, I heard a dish break out of nowhere. I went into the kitchen and noticed that for the dish to have broken, it would have needed to be lifted up from the dish rack, since there's sides and walls around the edge of it, moved over like 2 feet, and then dropped directly into the sink. There was nothing in the sink before it happened. Dishes were already cleaned. If it simply fell into the sink, which it couldn't have, it would have landed on the left side of the sink, but instead it was on the right side. We continued to actively seek paranormal experiences and ask for entities to show themselves, even though we already 100% believed in it and had those prior experiences. We wanted more and more, which led to the most profound experience I've ever had. It was approaching midnight on a snowy and icy winter night in December. My friend and I were driving back to my place, and as we came up to a crossroads, road intersection, less than a quarter of a mile ahead of us, we noticed a man in dark, dirty clothes, carrying a dirty bag over his shoulder, resembling a very old man, and he had a limp. As he walked, it was kind of glitchy looking and didn't look normal at all. He was walking along the side of the road towards the crossroads, with his back to us as we approached him. Immediately, my friend and I thought it was unordinary. We looked at each other and said, "What the fuck?" As we've always traveled this road many times and never saw someone walking on it, especially during winter and at midnight. Our first thought is, it could be a homeless man. I seriously considered rolling down the window and asking if he was okay, but that thought quickly changed as we approached him. As we were passing alongside him, I looked over my shoulder, directly looking at his face. Nothingness. It was pitch black. Then I looked at his hands, and they were also pitch black too, and not like he was wearing a ski mask and gloves. Additionally, he was not transparent, like most apparitions are. He actually completely resembled a human in appearance and apparel, except for the face and hands. My friend and I quickly drove to the other side of the crossroad and immediately whipped the car around to get another view of him. Then he was already gone. Then, hundreds of feet back, where we just came from, we saw an entity cross the road and then vanish under a light post. So we drove down the road and back multiple times, no one to be found anywhere. When we decided to finally go back home, we had to turn around in a court, and a big black dog was on the side of the road and stared at us as we drove by. Then a few minutes later, a rabbit runs right out in front of us, causing us to frantically slam on the brakes. This experience occurred at a crossroads near a Catholic church. A few days later, we decided to visit the church and see if they had any familiarity with such stories or sightings. No one answered the door, although several cars were there. Then we visited a second Catholic church in the area, and as we were walking up through the grass towards one of the buildings, a black cat walked up beside my friend and I, stared at us, then continued walking on. Guess what? This church did not answer their door for us either. I want to mention, I don't believe in the black cat superstition and felt zero negative or evil energy from the cat. The cat was awesome and just looked at us before moving onward. All of this still gives me goosebumps today, and it happened many years back. For a while now, I've been looking for more clarity, explanation, and to better understand all of it. We sought it out and found it, but there aren't many answers. What's your take on all these experiences? What do you think it means? And most importantly, who was the entity we saw at the crossroads, and what would have caused them to appear to us that night? No one else was around the entire time it happened. Not one car, one person, nothing.